All right, guys. I'm doing another video about Jordan Peterson. I did one already about his Michael Teachings chart, which you should look up because Michael Teachings is one of the most interesting spiritual typology systems there is. Because it talks about your past lives and your soul type and all these things. So it's really interesting stuff. But I also wanted to talk about his Vedic astrology and his human design a little bit, and maybe his Enneagram and his aura colors. I think I can get through all that in this video. So I went in depth for a little bit. I took some notes on this stuff, made a little presentation on it. So give her a go. We'll start going through it. So let's get this thing going. All right. So this is his chart. You look on there, made a simplified version of his chart. I have a few slides looking at the different aspects of these things, but on this slide, you can see I'm talking about the Ascendant, and in Vedic astrology, this is the North Indian style chart, and the top diamond is always the Ascendant. So you can see it's got the number 2 there. That means he's a Taurus ascendant. Characteristics of Taurus are like you're self-reliant, you're grateful and sensual and supportive. It's ruled by Venus, but it's about security and safety through resources and stuff like that. But he's got 2 planets in the ascendant, on the Ascendant and Mercury, and his sun is actually at the highest degree out of all of his planets, which means it's his Atma Karaka. It's like his soul significator. It's like this represents him. This is the planet that represents who he is. So he's like the sun. That's pride, courage, power, assertiveness, success. You can be very inspired and ambitious, assertive, impulsive, and fiery. So fire, like sun, is actually a malefic, because if you look at the sun with your eyes, it burns. It's too much. So it's a very powerful planet, or graha, because it's not literally a planet. So that's just characteristics of him. You can see he's like the sun. He's very powerful, very assertive, and he's got Mercury there. Like I said, this makes it so his spiritual evolution is through his mind, through the intellect, and through communications and media. That's what the Mercury is about. Is communicating with others. Writing is a big thing. Speaking is also another big thing with Mercury. So those are all aspects of him for sure. You can see that that's what he does. He's a fucking speaker. So that's it for his ascendant. Those are the two most prominent planets on his chart. So his moon, you can see down here, that's the 5th house. You count this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's in the 5th house. The 5th house is like it's past life talent. It's also everything fun and like romance, everything you do for fun, everything pleasurable. So having the moon there, the moon is like your mind and your emotions. The moon being in the 5th makes him, he can be fun, expressive, and charming. Brilliant, intellectual. He's passionate about his beliefs. He's virtuous and moral. It rules the 3rd house, because Cancer is there in the 3rd. Up here you can see, which actually makes him artistic, happy, courageous, and makes it so he can fulfill his desires. His moon is actually in the sign of Virgo. So, in Vedic astrology, they look at the moon as the most primary planet. It's the closest planet to us, or graha, and it reflects your whole inner self, basically. Everything you're feeling, everything you're thinking, it's your whole mind. So he's very much like a Virgo. Virgo is about like improving and organizing, enhancing and assisting. It's, you can be very perfectionistic and controlling and a workaholic. And, that's definitely the case with him. He's I'll talk about this later, but he's a 1 in the Enneagram, and that really fits too. The perfectionism and the controlling and the workaholism. The nakshatra that his moon is in the sign of Virgo, it's the nakshatras are like the sub constellations, and his is Hasta, which means like the hand, and it's also ruled by the moon. It makes him dedicated and generous, intelligent, resourceful, and calm, practical, very detail oriented, and totally immersed in the world of doing. He's doing stuff constantly. Like his work days is like 16. He has like 16-hour days. Like he's not just 8 hours. No, he's doing stuff the whole fucking day. Like always, man, working on his shit. So I mean, you can totally see that with him. How detail oriented he is. I mean, with his first book, Maps of Meaning, I think it's like a 700-page book or something. It's crazy. It's a big book. I don't remember exactly, but he spent 15 years on it, and he worked on it for 3 hours each day, and he wrote every sentence like 50 times. And then he just reduced down to the one sentence that he wanted to use out of those 50. So he wrote like a huge book like 50 times over 15 years, which is just it's crazy to have that much discipline and control and getting into the details and all that stuff. And that's totally what this moon is saying. It's totally what he's about. Because the moon is in the 5th, that means that he's got past life talent with his mind. So it totally makes sense. So let's look at his Rahu. His Rahu is in the 3rd house up here. We'll talk about his K2 as well because they're related. But you can see his Rahu is in the 3rd and his K2 is in the 9th, across from it. They're always across from each other. His Rahu in the 3rd makes you ambitious, courageous, energetic, passionate, gives you leadership ability and writing ability. The 3rd house is associated with courage. It's a lot like Mars. It also deals with like brothers and sisters and stuff like that. I think that's why the communication is part of it, because when you're growing up with your brothers and sisters, that's who you communicate with first. So it's like it's how you learn to communicate is with your siblings. I actually don't know if he has siblings, but communication is a big thing. It makes him, because Rahu's there, they call that the networker, messenger, or teacher. And it's actually in the sign of Cancer, which actually means he's moving towards home life, family, intuition, because that's the Cancer is a water sign, towards his emotions, his peace of mind, embracing the softer side, caring and learning to be vulnerable and emotionally aware. And you could totally see this in himself. Like I mean, family is a really big thing for him for sure. And when we talk about his K2, this will make sense. So you know, he cries sometimes when he's talking. He gets really emotional, and you can feel it from him. It's one of the most beautiful things I've seen. You know, of public speakers. You know, they're talking about what they're passionate about, what they really care about, and he really feels all the pain and sadness and horrible things that have happened in history, and he feels for so many people. And you know, when he talks about people coming up to him and talking to him about what they've learned from him and how they're getting their lives together and how everything's you know, how they're going towards an aim and they're cleaning up everything and they're cleaning up their lives and they're making a big difference. That really gets him, you know. I mean, it's really cool that he's you know, he has a strong intellectual side, but he has a softer side too, and that's totally makes sense that he's moving towards that, you know, moving towards that energy. You know, it's actually conjunct Venus, so that brings a lot of Venus qualities to him. You know, makes him creative, makes him compassionate and loving, harmonious and social. His charisma increases the happiness of other people. And you know, I bet this has an effect too. I mean, he does have an attraction to Venus stuff. I mean, just like the way he dresses. I mean, he dresses like a boss. I mean, he looks awesome all the time. His suits are sick. You know, it really helps to have like an actual image. You know, like how you present yourself really does make a difference. You know, having a sense of taste and style, and you know, he collects. I think he collects Russian art in his house, and he just has a bunch of Russian art. So art really matters to him. I think also just beauty is definitely a part of his thing for sure. Just go to the next thing. So his K2, you know, because his K2, Rahu is what you're moving towards in this life, and K2 is where you're coming from, what you've done in past lives, what your past life activity was, what you have a lot of experience in, stuff like that. And because it's opposite the third house, it's in the ninth house. And so third house is like with just like communicating with people, and ninth house is like higher communication, the higher philosophy, the higher sides of things. So K2 in the ninth means he seeks enlightenment through foreign philosophies and teachings, and he develops an unconventional approach. So he's kind of built his own path that way, through his philosophy. And it's in Capricorn, so that's opposite Cancer. So basically, he's learning about Cancer stuff, but he has so much experience with Capricorn stuff, which is worldly affairs. You know, pursuing worldly affairs in his past lives is what he's done a lot of. Makes him really organized, makes him perfectionist, practical, and gives him a sense of duty. And you know, and Saturn is there with K2, which actually, you know, rules Capricorn. So Saturn is actually happy to be in Capricorn, but that totally reinforces the energy of that Saturn stuff. So, you know, it makes him disciplined, responsible, and gives him a philosophical and detached view, and it makes him exceed competition. So, I mean, you know, this guy, like I was saying, I mean, he's perfectionist, so controlled and disciplined, and it's crazy, you know. He just has so much of that ability. So that's the balance, with his Rahu and Ketu, is going from that worldly life, work and stuff and discipline, to being more in touch with the emotions and family and stuff like that. So that's what he's been balancing, basically. So, when you look at the 10th house, it's this one on the right, this diamond on the right is the 10th house. That's his career and his public standing, what he's known for, what he's going to be doing, how he's going to be known. So he's got Jupiter there in the 10th. And that means, Jupiter is a benefic. It means that he's going to have a successful career, high position, fame, and it's Jupiter is like, Sagittarius in the 9th house. It's the same kind of energy. So, he's a teacher of philosophy. Jupiter is like philosophy and higher knowledge. Makes him spiritual, makes him happy and content. Jupiter rules the 8th and 11th houses. So if you look at the 8th house down here, it's got the number 9. That's Sagittarius. And in the 11th up here, that's where Pisces is, the 12th sign right there. So because Jupiter is in the 10th, it's connecting the 8th house and the 11th house to his career. So the 8th house, is like, it's research, psychology, metaphysics, getting deep into the details and it's the 8th house is like, it's like Scorpio stuff, It is kind of related to the cult, but, it is metaphysics as well. And you can phrase that in different ways in psychology, getting deep. So that's what he does, he's a psychologist. And so the 11th house deals with friends and groups and organizations. And, that's a big thing. I mean, he talks in front of huge groups and he has a big connection to groups and stuff. It gives him a prosperous career and gives him many career opportunities. So, it's interesting. You can see that it's the psychology there, and the group orientedness is there. And let's look at his Saturn real quick, just to talk a little bit about that more. So Saturn is in the 9th house, which basically means that he's had restriction and struggles with philosophy. Might have in past lives had to deal with mental oppression and dogmatism and restriction of personal freedom. So in this life, he's breaking free of that and developing his own philosophy and his own belief system and teaching it to other people. So, like I said earlier, also, Saturn is in Capricorn. And what that means is, like I was saying, Saturn restricts all kinds of shit. No matter where it is, it's restricting you in some way. So it means, that he might have had earlier on in his life struggled with this, which is, the fear of success, of his own power, of humiliation, of being humiliated by society, due to a fall from a high social position and an abuse of power in past lives. So he did something in past lives that was hard to deal with, and he must have made some mistakes, and he doesn't want to abuse power again. So, he's got to do it the right way this time. And it seems like that's what he's done. But, that brings, caution, discipline, and hard work. that needs to be dedicated towards serving society. So that's what Saturn does when it's in Capricorn, is tries to get you to put your efforts in the right place and actually serve people. So that's just a couple things of his astrology. I have a couple notes on his human design too, so I'll talk about that a little bit. He's actually, which is, it's also kind of known as like the pioneer, the initiator, the one that starts stuff. And they're very active and going in. They have what they call an internal nonverbal creative flow that they follow. And so these types of people are just the ones that make an impact and kind of start new things, and they can influence people really intensely, or they can establish a whole new thing. Like J.R.R. Tolkien was a manifestor. The Lord of the Rings guy. J.K. Rowling, same thing. With the Harry Potter stuff. Adolf Hitler with his Nazism. And then we've got some actors and stuff that are manifestors as well. Johnny Depp, Jack Nicholson, Jennifer Lawrence, and Jennifer Aniston. But yeah, so their purpose is to lead change by inspiring others into action. So that's what all those people do. So his profile in human design is the 5-1, which is the Heretic Investigator. So the Heretic, that's line 5. That's the visionary leader, the teacher, the savior. These types of people, they deal with projections and expectations of others all the time. So it's like people are projecting shit onto him all the time, and he has to deal with the projections and make sure that the way he's being seen is true to who he is. He's not just getting bullshit all the time. But the thing is, he struggles with this. People say he's like a conservative, or they demonize him somehow, or I don't know, make him anti-feminist somehow. I don't know. People who don't really understand him are projecting all kinds of shit onto him. This is like the archetype of Jesus. Jesus went through the same thing. He's the leader, teacher, savior, and they ended up crucifying him. So it's pretty tough. So the second part of that is the Investigator, line 1, and that's it's you're getting really into the details of things. Very investigative, curious, and introspective. You need to spend a lot of time to understand things before you actually take action on things. So that explains why he gets so much into the details with his work. And you hear when he speaks, like how he gets into all the little details and explains things very logically. So, when you have these two together, I mean, this is, other 5-1 profiles, the Heretic Investigator. Hitler, again, he was, he's also a Heretic Investigator. Aleister Crowley is one. Martin Luther King Jr., Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ken Wilber, the spiritual teacher, Putin, Bernie Sanders, and George Bush. These people are seen by some as saviors, but then they deal with a lot of projections from other people, and it's something that they have to work through. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that he has that, though. You can totally see that energy. It's totally obvious. So his incarnation cross is called the cross of confrontation. and his life theme is to take a leadership role in situations that need change, showing others how things should be done. So, he just sees that people aren't doing things in a way that could be as useful to them. So, he assists people in taking charge of their lives to bring about significant personal growth. So that's totally what he does. He talks to people. He's telling them, you got to get your life together. You got to go in a certain direction. You got to have an aim, and you got to work towards something. You got to be responsible, or else your life doesn't really have any meaning. And it's totally true what he talks about. So that's what he's here to do. And what's crazy about this stuff like Vedic astrology and human design is this information was available. I mean, the system didn't establish itself until like in the 2000s, I think, the human design one at least. But you could have, if it was there, you could have checked when he was born and figured this shit out and see that he's what he's going to do. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy that this stuff actually talks about your life, and then you can see it in action with the people, when you start studying this stuff. So let's talk about each of the keys that are part of his incarnation cross. It's the 45, the 26, the 36, and the 6. So the 45 is the shadow is dominance, the gift is synergy, and the city is communion. So, I mean, this essentially makes him an authority figure, and he acts as a focal gathering point for people, ideas, dreams, and enterprises. Evolution. Shadow is pride, gift is artfulness, and the city is invisibility. This gives him the ability to speak and communicate with power. His radiance, the third gene key in his chart, is shadow's turbulence, gift is humility, and the city is compassion. And this actually makes it so he experiences life through his feelings and emotions, which need to be felt and expressed, and that's what he does. And the last one, his purpose, is the shadow is conflict, the gift is diplomacy, and the city is peace. And it makes him focus on making the world a more open and honest place. And he wants to work on the new human. That's part of his vision. Is it must be, create some kind of new human who's actually getting shit done and going in a certain direction and actually changing the world and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's crazy to see that this stuff totally fits with him, that, this is what he does with people. He's a leader, and he's showing people how to do things the right way, and, really influencing people for sure. So we'll look at his channels a little bit. The channels are these lines connecting the different centers. So, he's got the mind, or the ajna, right here, this green triangle. That's the mind. And this one right here is the throat. So these are connected through the 1762. This makes it so he absorbs all facts and details and presents concrete and convincing opinions and arguments. He's got his own way of thinking. He's got his own internal mental process that he's engaged in all the time. I actually don't have this filled in, so mine's much different. When this is open, and you kind of take in other perspectives and play with them, and so you can see many different sides. But he's got his own way of thinking that he's built into himself, with tons of facts and details to make these convincing opinions and arguments. So his next channel he's got is the jack of all trades. It's connecting his emotions to his throat, and this This gives them the thirst to experience life. It makes them a passionate thrill seeker. It gives them an active life. Because the emotions going to the throat, it must give that thrill, you know. He's got this channel connecting the throat to the self center. So he's got his own direction and his own experiences that he's going in a certain direction. That's what the self center is. And it's a leadership channel. And it basically means that you know, as the prodigal, it's like you're having your own experiences and then you're really reflecting on them deeply. This provides direction and creative guidance, makes them empathic, and makes it so you can assimilate personal life experiences, like I was saying, into wisdom. So he provides the wisdom to others through his own experience, and he leads in that way through what he's experienced and what he talks about. And the last channel he's got is connecting the heart center right here, the red triangle, to the spleen on the left. This makes him a creative being, a master manipulator, a charming messenger, and means that he's striving to improve the world through creative concepts. So, you know, you're seeing all these things. He's very intellectual. He's got passion for life. He's a leader. He's got wisdom. He's a messenger. You know, all that stuff is present in these channels that he's got. So that explains them quite a lot. So, you know, the other systems, a couple other things I want to talk about. You know, in the Enneagram, he's a 1, which is in the body triad with the 8 and the 9. The 1 is all about being good. You want to be good. You don't want to be bad. That's like the essentials of it, you know. It makes you really rational, idealistic, principled, purposeful, and self-controlled, and perfectionistic. And there you go again. See, like, perfectionism is huge for him. Like, you see it everywhere. You know, 1s are really, really disciplined, and they want to be right, and they want to show other people how to be right and do things the right way. So, you know, he wants others to improve themselves and models the right way to be. I totally understand the 1 energy because my dad was a 1. And he would, you know, I could feel his frustration when things weren't going as what he saw was the right way, or people weren't living up to his standards of, like, you know, you're not being good, right? You're not disciplined. You're not, you know, stuff like that. So, I mean, that kind of can make them righteous, you know, which can be a problem. But the way through that actually is to go to 7. You see there's a line here connecting 1 to type 7. And 7 is about, you know, it's having fun, enjoying life and stuff like that. And, you know, it kind of softens that edge that the 1s have. They're so disciplined, and they try to control their anger and be good by doing that. But they just need to soften up, you know. It's too intense. So, I mean, like I was saying, you know, it says here, tends to suppress anger and emotions and needs to learn to relax, lighten up, and use humor. So, yeah, like, you know, I think Jordan Peterson's done some of that. My dad really he was a humorous guy, and he got more into that later in his life, and wanted to have more fun, you know. So, you know, that's basically the 1. Disciplined as fuck, you know, it's crazy. Other 1s are, you know, Gandhi, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, Michelle Obama. So that's his Enneagram type. And his talk about his auras a little bit. So he's actually the auras, you have different energy based on what aura color you have. And so I was studying him and I figured out what combination he was. And he's a combination of violet and tan. I'm actually a violet yellow, so I can understand the violet. And the violet essentially is it's inspirational, visionary, charismatic, powerful, magnetic, dynamic, and wise. It's an emotional aura. They're leaders and teachers. They educate the masses to inspire positive change. They have a message they want to share with the world, and they've got incredible emotional depth and compassion. It's just when you have the violet, you feel like you have to do something to change the world or heal the world somehow. It's like you have this big responsibility you feel on your shoulders. So being in front of the masses is definitely a thing that violets want to do. I mean, because I'm a violet yellow is actually more about having fun and enjoying things. And it's creative and, stuff like that. So when you have violet yellow, it's like you're probably into music or more creative stuff. But he's got tan. He's got violet tan, which is an interesting combination because tans and violets don't actually match well together that often. They're kind of in conflict. The tan is it's very logical. It's a mental aura. It's methodical, meticulous, detail-oriented, traditional, conservative, and perfectionistic. They're logical, sequential thinkers. They need to see the proof and logic and facts behind everything. So, when you mix these two together, the kinds of things you get like psychologists, politicians, teachers, professors, social workers, public speakers, writers, and scientists. And just look at all the words, they all describe him so well. He's like all those things. He's a mix of all those things. So it just makes perfect sense, It's like if you have somebody who's super logical and goes from, step 1 to step 2 to steps 3, but then you also have this like deep vision inside you that you want to change the world and help the world and heal the world and stuff like that. That's the violet. It's an interesting combination. You don't see it that often. I don't know. I don't know what other violet tans I know. I mean, maybe Sam Harris is a violet tan, but he could be something else. It's a cool combination. So that's basically what I got for him. I mean, one more thing actually. His lifetime symbol is the Hermit, because when you add up the birthday numbers, it actually comes out to a certain archetype that you're living out this life. And his is the number 9, and that actually is associated with the sign Virgo. The Hermit is associated with Virgo, and that's order and harmony. It deals with contemplation and introspection. Means that he has a need for emotional, psychological, and environmental space and quietude and alone time. I'm sure that's very heavy for him when he's in his creative process, working on his books and stuff. He probably needs a lot of space. It's very spiritual and philosophical. The people with this are encouraged towards leadership positions because they have so much knowledge and wisdom, because they just reflect so much on their internal space in their alone time. So that totally fits with him. He's a leader. He's wise, and he must be using his space so he can bring something out to the world. So that pretty much sums him up. I mean, you look at his Michael teachings and pair it with all this information too, and it's telling the same story. I mean, this guy he's super logical, Uh, he's got this Venus quality about him that you can see with him. He's emotional too. But he's like this. He's a passionate leader with a vision of how he wants to see the world change. He's got the violet energy going on. But he wants to like explain things intellectually with good arguments, because it doesn't seem like a lot of people actually have super strong arguments that they go when they're, talking about, the higher things like philosophy and stuff, like in spirituality. That's hard to put into a logical argument, but just the way he's oriented and stuff, makes it so he was able to do that, so he's brought something interesting into the world through his philosophy and everything he's done. And he's super disciplined guy, like crazy. So that's it. That's all I got for the rest of his stuff that I took some notes on and stuff. So I'm gonna do some other videos on other people at some point. I've got a lot of things on my plate that I'm trying to do music stuff too. So I'll see who I want to do next. I mean, I might do Sam Harris at some point, but I mean, I want to, like I said before, I want to do Adolf Hitler and L. Ron Hubbard. Also, like, I'm interested in rappers and musicians and stuff like that. Music's really big for me, so philosophy and music it's pretty much my my shit that I'm really into. So I want to study the people that are in those domains essentially and make more videos on this stuff. So there you go, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.